For this episode 3 breakdown of The Watchmen, I'm going to do something different because I have to provide a theory here. Because as we've gone through these past 3 episodes, the one thing that hasn't really necessarily remained clear is what is Adrian Veldt, Ozymandias' plan. But if you could, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. We'll keep you up to date on any exclusive content by myself, Grandmaster Facts, and the Partynerdz. Now, before we go into Ozymandias' plan, we have to go back into the episode and basically realize what this episode became, which was pretty much not necessarily even a backstory, but what has basically occurred in the life of Agent Lloyd Blake, who happens to be Silk Spectre from the original Watchmen graphic novel, who has now taken a role in life as an FBI agent who works for the Anti-Vigilante Task Force. And she is responsible for hunting down vigilantes because it is illegal to be so. She, of course, as we know her from the comics, Silk Spectre was a part of the secondary connotation of the Watchmen because her mother was an original Minuteman. She was the original Silk Spectre. And her father is the comedian. And it drew a little bit of hypocrisy as to the fact that, throughout this entire episode, she's telling jokes. There's this little mission control booth where she can phone into Mars and possibly have a conversation or relay a message to Dr. Manhattan. And the whole time that she calls him, she's telling him jokes. Draw ire from the fact that her father's a comedian. She gets, of course, tasked taken into the investigation of Chief Crawford's death and is brought into Tulsa and is introduced into this world where, she's been basically bringing up the fact of where she's been fighting against vigilantes being brought up, where Tulsa is just surrounded by them. And that entire police force being masked is just something that she does not agree with, where she gets that meeting with Senator Keene and she gets brought in. So her introduction into Tulsa is basically having a conversation with Looking Glass first. So she gets brought in to him, into that layer of his. And, she's not fazed by any of this. She understands this wholeheartedly, but she doesn't necessarily want to accept it. Now, as the story progresses, this is necessarily going to get deeper and deeper. So Looking Glass, of course, is the first person that she basically gets a chance to talk to as far as the investigation is concerned in the Chief Crawford's death. He references the fact that basically, you have to have a conversation with Sister Knight, Angela Abar, who happens to be the only 2 survivors of the White Knight. And they become close in this fact. So the first place that she necessarily has to go to, which just so happened to be 2 hours from the time that she talks to Looking Glass, was Chief Crawford's funeral, where, of course, being that the police force is a masked police force, they're still under a hunt by the 7th Cavalry. So at this funeral, of course, a lot of bullshit happens. But draw ire to the fact that before being brought to Tulsa, Senator Keene said something because Silk Spectre, of course, has a pet owl that she was feeding mice. He made a subliminal dig at her that basically, if you do this for me, I can help you get that owl out of that cage. Now, the one person that we haven't seen of the Watchmen series is Owlman. So who's to say that basically on his end, he has been arrested and is in lockup for sticking around and being a vigilante. He didn't do what Silk Spectre did and become an FBI agent and change his identity. He wanted to continue doing the work that he was continuing doing. So necessarily we get to the funeral scene, and that funeral scene is pretty damn deep, where a 7th Cavalry member says that he has a bomb strapped to his heart, and if his heart stops, the whole place is going to blow. All at the funeral of Chief Crawford. And Silk Spectre, of course, takes the guy out. It is connected to his heart. Roll his ass right up into where they were going to bury Chief Crawford, and Sister Knight basically throws the coffin inside of the hole to cover up the explosion, and there so it happens. But another thing that happened just before that, you come to realize that there is no telecommunication that's happened. There's no advanced technology as far as communication is concerned. She told Sister Knight, page me. Nobody in the past 3 episodes, I just realized, has picked up a cell phone. Everybody's still running on landlines. So the whole world has not accepted advanced technology as far as communication is concerned. And they still use pages. So therefore, the spread of any type of propaganda that could happen through advanced technology is not happening, which is also deep. But this now gets me to Adrian Veldt. And the sneaky thing in the theory that I have for his plan is the fact that And I'm sorry I've taken this long to get to this point. So we see him, and we've kind of noticed, of course, in episode 2 that he has like a bunch of clones. He has a bunch of male clones, a bunch of female clones, and they're all of the same person. In the midst of him working out a plan to, and it from now in episode 3, it looks like he's trying to escape something. There's an agreement to where he could hide from the public eye, but now he's trying to get back. Working out these little tests on the clones per se as a ways and a means for him to escape. So you see him, of course, in the second episode, he's putting out a play as to the origin of Dr. Manhattan, burns one of the clones alive, Mr. Phillips, as you would call him. Necessarily says we can use him for a greater purpose later. But then in this episode, he takes another Mr. Phillips in what looks like a made into astronaut suit. The editing cuts to, of course, a dead Mr. Phillips in the astronaut suit, completely cold, frozen, like he was shot into space, right? Because that's what happens when you get shot into space and you get exposed, because there is no temperature up there. You basically gonna freeze to fucking death. So we look at this and we have to say, okay, he's trying to get into space, but this is the theory. Is he on Earth, or did Dr. Manhattan himself create a bubble world? Because he could create reality, you know, such as if you want to go into the Marvel sense, like a Scarlet Witch can. He could create a reality and say he created this little sector of what looks like Earth on Mars with a little bit of, I guess, humanity involved. So he gives him a bunch of clones that he can talk to, and that so he doesn't go batshit fucking crazy, right? And now it's pretty much a prison for him. And the reason that I thought of this was the fact that when he found out that the suit didn't work for his clone Mr. Phillips, and when he shot him into space he froze, he went looking for a better way to make this astronaut suit a little bit more tighter so he wouldn't freeze. So he finds a bunch of buffalo where he takes an arrow and shoots one, kills one dead. And in the midst of him walking up to it to, of course, skin the hide and maybe like make a better suit, he gets shot at. Didn't get shot. He got shot at by this mysterious figure called the Game Warden, sitting there in a Zorro mask on the top of his horse and everything like that. To where when Adrian Veldt goes back to his abode, his castle, a letter gets reached out to him, and basically it's in reference to an agreement that was made between, of course, the Game Warden per se and Adrian Veldt. I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, this now I'm seeing that Adrian Veldt has boundaries, because now I see a whole nother person is not speaking to him, and it's basically like, okay, you went a little bit too far, don't cross that line again. All the while it's just looking like he's trying to escape. So I think him and Dr. Manhattan have made a deal, because there were no consequences for what basically happened on Earth, where he killed 3 million people in order to stop a World War III planned attack between the United States and the Soviet Union back in the original graphic novel. So you may not have thought that there was any consequences to what Ozymandias has done, but I think Dr. Manhattan just made that consequence happen, to where Adrian Veldt had to be basically taken away. Because in the early episode, you saw that there were papers that said Adrian Veldt is now declared dead because he was missing for so long. So if Dr. Manhattan made him disappear, that would make sense. But let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to us at the Party Nerds YouTube page. Feel free to hit me up, Grandmaster Facts, FAQS, on Instagram and Twitter. And stay tuned for more developments. Party Nerds go.